Good evening. Welcome to the July 11th Heritage Commission meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and if we could stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll do a roll call, starting to my left.
Stephen Calloway.
Marion Colby, Chairman.
Gail Barringer.
Steve Gannon, Selectman's Rep.
Carl Frank, Assistant Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do the members have any requests for additions or deletions to the agenda this evening? Okay.
Can think of any.
We have a spot here for public input, but no one from the public is present, so we'll skip that part. So the next thing is the town has been developing a metal detecting policy, and I was going to ask Steve to discuss it because I think it's the Board of Selectmen's office that's been working on it, and if we could have some input about that, and we will be collaborating with the Conservation Commission on determining, giving permission to people on historic properties.
Yep. So that is still in the works. Last time we discussed, we wanted the recreation as well as the conservation to provide, their input. What do they not want, how do they want it framed? Do they just want to completely block it, or would they rather provide a list of properties that you cannot, do these activities? Same thing with conservation, and then we want the heritage to contribute to conservation or recreation, depending on where the property resides, to the spots where they don't believe metal detecting should be. I'm asking to have it opened up. I think metal detecting is too narrow because it's just simply metal detecting. The problem is artifact digging and bottle recovery and whatever else they call it. So we don't want somebody going down there and saying, I'm not metal detecting, I'm digging for glass bottles. So we just basically want it to be covered where you cannot do any of those on these properties. The recreation has submitted theirs already. They're basically saying they don't want people in the fields digging because we have, or they have irrigation, there's just all kinds of things in there. So they're definitely saying restricting from the fields. They're okay with that Darapon Beach. The discussion about the old camp that's down there is kind of still in the works, but I imagine by now it's probably been picked through. And I know Chairman Brennan has been reviewing the paperwork and adding his portion to it, and I believe they're still going through on what they're going to restrict and where, and I believe a lot of that's going to come from the heritage on, where they can, where you cannot. And I think they're also taking the effect where instead of saying, I'm against throwing a big blanket saying you can't do it anywhere in town, I'd rather open it up to certain locations. So if a young man or a young girl gets a metal detecting kit for her Christmas present, she should be able to go out someplace. But we also want them to know you can't go to, across the street from the old town hall, and you can't go to cemeteries, and you can't go to certain locations. I believe what it'll be is it still will be a policy. They'll go to town hall, they'll apply for a permit. The permit will be good for 1 year, and when they sign that permit, they'll also get the list of properties that they cannot detect on dig bottles or artifacts. Treasure hunt, yeah. So that's still in the works. I believe we're going to discuss it more at our next meeting, and by that time, Chairman Brennan from Conservation will have provided his input.
I understand. Okay, when they had the initial hearing, the Litchfield Historical Society went with a young man that we did sponsor in his senior project of doing some metal detecting. So we agree that it's not, totally outside the realm of possibilities, but it needs to be a little better controlled.
Controlled, right. Because in that situation, it's beneficial for the town as well as for him, and we know he's gonna go out there, he's gonna follow the rules, he's gonna, he's not gonna damage the property, he's gonna leave it in the same position, same condition when it's finished. But we also don't want something in place that prevents that from occurring.
I like the way it's taken
That's what?
I like the way it's taken the Board of Selectmen the time that should be taken, getting input from all the parties.
Yep.
So that it's a policy that's workable
Yep,
and that we understand.
makes sense, yeah. And I believe you've already, Chairman Colby, you've already provided Heritage a list of properties?
I believe that, I think it's in this, there's a Litchfield Historic Resources Survey that was done in
This is what we were just discussing.
1988.
Okay.
And why don't I have that list though? Is it in here?
Is there anything that needs to be
Are you
updated
talking on the
since
map?
Yeah, I
1988?
thought there was a map in here. Yeah, I have it.
This one?
Oh, yeah, I don't have a copy of that, no. Okay.
So this is a map that was done, and it was part of the town's master plan in 2002. And it was done with the National Regional Planning Commission. And these are historic and archaeological sites in the town. And there are 18 archaeological sites, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it looks like 9 historical sites in terms of places that people would be likely to want to explore.
Yep,
And it doesn't include Moore's, oh, it does have Moore's Falls locks in it, and the remains around it and so forth. And I'm not sure that any additional historic properties have been acquired since. The Thornton's Ferry site has been, but it's already on the list.
okay. So even though that's 20 years old, you feel it's still accurate?
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
Because remember, there are historic sites in town that are privately owned.
Right.
We have no jurisdiction over
Yep.
those. There are archaeological sites that fall on private property that we could certainly talk to the homeowner,
yeah.
if someone were interested in going on those properties, to advise what they should do.
Yeah, I think that'd be very beneficial.
How can we let, as a commission, how can we let folks know about the list that we do have or that the town has?
Well,
So,
when they come in to apply for a permit, Gail, for metal detecting or treasure hunting, then they will be given a list
Right.
of properties that they cannot go on.
I was thinking more along the lines of, I think with increased community interest
Well,
in all of what's going on in terms of the properties and the heightened interest after the Bixby House was demolished, that there are folks in town that aren't going to want to metal detect or bottle dig, but might be very interested in just having the information you've nicely outlined for us here tonight.
this particular, it's chapter 7 of the master plan that was developed in 2002, and I printed this from the Heritage Commission's section of the town webpage. You go to town, and then you go into department or commissions, click on Heritage, and there's a lot of information in there. And this was in there, and I just printed it out from there, so that list is available to people but you do have to do a little digging. I mean, we could make it more,
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
From a very simplistic standpoint, if we can get the word out that this kind of information is available, people are going to feel much more informed as we address the demolition of buildings, or as we educate folks and build a bank of information about our historic sites.
the only caution I would have with that is I wouldn't want to advertise those properties yet until we have this policy in place
for
to
sure.
protect them.
Right.
For
And
sure.
then definitely we'll get it out there that people can know,
Right.
because it is, you don't realize how old the town is and how historic it is until you start driving around and looking at
Right.
the sites, and then you're like,
Right.
oh, it's
Right.
kind of neat.
But I think that, people who are interested and have, would tune into the YouTube and check our little meetings out about the Heritage Commission, they're probably interested in the heritage of the town, and it attracted them to us. But so they can look on that town page if they're interested in, reading up on some of this stuff before we, try to make a broad,
Yep.
broad distribution of it.
Or even a kiosk or a sign at the Heritage Building where it could be a map that locates, identifies where all the locations are, might be helpful too. So if you have somebody just driving
Right, I think
around.
we-
And what building are you referring to as the Heritage Building?
The
The old town hall?
Old Town Hall,
Which-
yeah.
Oh, well, maybe in the kiosks that are at Moores Falls.
Yeah,
and-
that would actually
Joint's
probably-
Ferry site,
That would probably be good too.
It-
because they'd be protected in
Good
the
idea,
kiosks.
yes.
And then people will
Right.
be able to see them and it may spark some more interest.
We
A
did
number
think
of
of-
years, a number of years ago, I wrote up historic information for each of those kiosks. I'm not sure it's still there, but
Oh.
Joan Kibben asked me to do it.
Nice.
So it's there.
So it's
Well, it may be
Well,
there,
it's
it might have been
somewhere.
weathered, it might have
Who
gotten
knows?
weathered out by now or
I'm not
or
sure if it's still
whatever.
there.
But we had discussed doing something at the muster ground and showing,
That's
a
right.
map of now that we've had the initial the archaeological site
Yeah.
plan, where we're working
Survey.
on the second survey. So that people could see where these old cellar holes and graveyard and so forth were. So that's something that, from the Historical Society end of things, that we'd be interested in working on too.
I really liked when the young man came in that did the dig there, how he mentioned that it's common to basically build up the cellar hole again, fill it in, so at least you have the perimeter of rocks and the cellar
Right.
hole will be covered with dirt, so it's
Yeah.
protected. But then people get an idea of how small this building was and, if it was moved or how close it is to the river and how it was
Yeah.
relocated, compared to being just looking at a hole and trying to, picture it in your mind of what it actually should be,
Yeah.
or was.
So I think that our next goal then would be to, I think we could start with this map that Stephen showed us, and then I do have a smaller copy of, and those sites, 18 sites in letters A through H as well, to collaborate with the, I think most of these would be under conservation, except the ones that are private.
Most of them would be under conservation.
Yeah.
So we'll get together with, or we'll send something to the Conservation Commission to help, to develop this sort of a list. And, and we can, I think at the next meeting, maybe we could review them, maybe they'll have another draft of the metal detecting.
Yeah, we should by then.
Are they thinking of expanding it to digging too, because I think that's important.
I think it's important, yeah.
I think it's important as well. I know speaking with Jason, he agrees too. We can't,
Yeah.
metal detecting is just too narrow of a
It's
scope.
just one part of it.
Yeah,
One part of it,
because I know
right.
people in town who have posted different pictures of things that they have gotten quote-unquote metal detecting. A lot of them are not things that have
No,
metal in them.
Glass.
So they're obviously doing some digging as well.
Yeah.
Maybe something was metal, but they found other things when they
Finding
started
old
digging.
dumps and those
Yeah,
things.
so there used to be a lot of bottle dumps around
Yeah.
town,
So right now, I think it's the three, but you were saying, what was the last, you were?
Well, treasure hunting. but
Treasure
I mean-
hunting,
I mean,
yeah.
it could be sonar, it could be,
Yeah.
X-rays, it could be all sorts of, modern day things that we have that we didn't necessarily use when, metal detecting was becoming a thing.
So maybe call it treasure hunting and.
like advanced
categories.
technology.
I'm not even sold on treasure hunting.
Yeah, there's gotta be,
It's
what is
gotta
that
be-
high level
this
phrase
needs-
that
this
covers?
needs to be
Exploration or
words.
something
Artifact,
like
yeah,
that.
recovery.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Say that again, Stephen.
artifact exploration.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
And
Because of
retrieval.
Yeah.
because
And
there's been
retrieval.
advances in the technology, Carl,
Right.
so that
Yeah,
the
oh,
old
yeah,
time
we
metal
have-
detector is like
Sure.
not the most high-tech thing they go out with.
Right.
So,
Okay,
Matt, make sure you make note of that. I'm gonna bring it up the next Board of Selectmen meeting, that maybe we rename it to artifact exploration.
Or something, we need to wordsmith something.
Yes.
yeah, right. Okay. So any other comments about the metal detecting? I think we should leave that open for discussion
Yeah.
at another meeting
Yep.
as this thing progresses
And
and develops.
we may want to keep in mind too, one of the sites that's listed, and it actually belongs to the town, is Old Stage Road.
Right.
And the Stage Road that we know today is not Old Stage Road.
Oh,
Old Stage Road was north of the present Stage Road that goes out into the Stage Road Senior Citizens Development.
Okay, yep.
And I stopped the other day after the Strawberry Festival, because John Crosis asked me about Stage Road and where it was. And I said, well, it's right there. And he said, what do you mean it's right there? I said, there's a road there, right, to the north of yours, if you look, and things are probably growing in. So I went up to check myself, and it has grown in beyond belief with all.
Is it north of the library, Steve?
No, it's south of the library, it's,
It just takes a different alignment. from
Right.
the
Oh, I see,
current-
okay.
I remember that too,
Right,
yeah.
where the
Oh, I
stone-
remember that, I
where the-
remember that.
Where
it
the
used to
stone on the
weird-
lawn
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You used to be able to see the road going across, and of course, when the Jeans lived out there, that was the road to their house.
Right, that's
But
right.
when
I
the
remember.
development came in, they sort of didn't really plan properly for their clubhouse.
Mhm.
And then when it was, oh my gosh, we gotta put a clubhouse in, well, they dropped it right in the middle of Stage Road.
Right,
Right.
And so it sort of cut Stage Road in half.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a section there that I told Jason that we should look at, and that should be cleared to keep open, just because it's the section of Old Stage Road.
So it's
It
not really,
also-
I'm sorry, it's not conservation, and it's not recreation, but it's town property.
property.
So we'll definitely wanna make sure that's listed as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
yeah.
And it
It's
also-
on the list, but it is being lost rapidly.
Okay.
And it also went to the powerhouse
Right,
for the electric cars.
so that's where that was located.
And my grandfather used to be the person that rode his horse down there to be at the power station when the vehicles came through.
Well, my grandfather used to ride his motorcycle
Well, there you
in
go.
1917.
Awesome.
Now we need pictures of all this, so.
Yeah,
I
that's
know,
right.
right? It's a whole new chapter that nobody knew
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
But we have a picture of the station house.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna table this for another, for discussion, further discussion at our next meeting.
Yep.
So number 7, I thought we could talk about the bylaws, and I gave out copies of, our bylaws are also listed on the town's page, under, if you look under town departments, under commissions, under Heritage Commission, and number 3 and 4. So if you talk about the purpose of the Litchfield Heritage Commission is established in accordance with RSA 673 for the proper recognition, use, and protection of resources, tangible or intangible, primarily man-made, that are valued for their historic, cultural, aesthetic, or community significance within their natural, built, or cultural context. So it's more than just trying to keep people from, I mean, the way I read this, it's more than just trying to come up with alternatives when someone wants to demolish an old property, but, you know, other ways to, for the proper recognition of these properties.
Absolutely, yes.
And protection maybe in a more proactive way, so that people, I think people were very taken by surprise about the Bixby house last winter, and, I mean, the timing of it, you know, right at the holidays was kind of hard, but, and, you know, having it in the winter, but, I think I think we should work on some of, you know, working on educating people or just informing people about some of these older properties in town. And then under our powers, under 4, in accordance with warrant articles 12 and 3 established by the voters in 2018, the commission shall have advisory and review authority, including but not limited to survey and inventory of all cultural resources. Now, we have this historic survey that was done by the National Regional Planning Commission back in 1988, but, you know, maybe we could review that and, you know, try to, by the way, this is also on that same webpage. I printed it out from there.
It does need to be updated.
To update
A lot
that,
of the
maybe we could
structures are
work,
gone.
maybe we could work on that. Update it, and we probably have even more information that, you know, we can work with the Historical Society and get, you know, consolidate more information that has maybe not come to light, because it's not new information, but it's information that we've, you know, centralized better since, you know, in the ensuing time between 1988 and now. Conduct any needed research, assist the planning board as requested in the development and review of sections of the master plan which address cultural and historic resources. Advise upon request local agencies and other local boards in their review of requests on matters affecting or potentially affecting cultural and historic resources. I guess that would be helping out other boards and commissions. Coordinate activities with appropriate service organizations and nonprofit groups, so we can coordinate with, you know, we have, according to these bylaws, we can coordinate with the Historical Society on some of our projects. like maybe talking about developing a historic district, or even working on this survey, we could do it in conjunction with Historical Society. We could publicize our activities, and I guess at this point, since there aren't any newspapers, that publicizing it would be on the town's Facebook page, and we could share it with the Historical Society's Facebook page as soon as I figure out how to exactly run that Facebook page.
If you need help, let me know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I need help, just
you.
letting you know right now. That's on the record. Says we can receive gifts of money and property, real and personal, in the name of the town. So send the gifts in.
Okay.
Such gifts can be managed and controlled by the
Let's have a
commission for its,
telethon.
for its proper purpose. And hold meetings and hearings as necessary. So I think that, I think we have some good ideas in this, in this vein. And I'd like to hear from any of the other members to see what their thoughts are on that. Anybody?
Well, I think that, as I've said before, I think at Historical Society meetings, that although we were able to get the 5 buildings, the library, the fire station, the church, the old town hall, and the original Griffin or Grammar School on the State Historic Register, and we spent a lot of time, what was that, 2 years, Stephen, that we spent doing that? And we have the documentation, and I think some people are aware that we were able to achieve those goals, but a lot of people are not, and I think it would really be appreciated by the public if we got that information out regarding the buildings, because they are very, very important and historic buildings.
That information should be on the town's website and the Historical Society's website.
Okay.
Because it's a nice little history
Yes.
of each of those
And,
buildings.
Good
and
point.
we could put it on I'm sure that the town would be willing to let us put it on the page for the Heritage Commission. But I was wondering if maybe we should, at each meeting, highlight one of those buildings.
I think that would be a
and-
good idea.
And, discuss it a little further, so
Yes.
if anybody is interested, or if they just read the minutes, they'll see the information about the building, so.
I think so.
So if we decide we're going to go forward and talk about historical properties, maybe one at each meeting, then we could start with those 5. That would give us a good start on that project, and then we could do research on some of the other buildings.
Well, I would envision that as we went along, meeting to meeting, perhaps we would look at some of the other historic buildings in town and give a history of those buildings, when
Right.
they were built, constructed, some as far back as the 1730s, and just create a bank of information for folks.
Right.
I think I have in past years underestimated the level of interest that people have in the history of Litchfield once you begin to put it out there.
Well, I agree, and I think that,
We've seen
We-
that at the Historical Society.
Right.
At the Strawberry Festival, we had a large number of people come through and tour the museum. Some folks didn't even know we had an upstairs, which is just fabulous. So many Litchfield artifacts.
Yep.
Very, very impressive, and it was good to see the public turn out.
I think it's a good idea.
I think we have a little bit of a basis, don't we, Stephen, with that survey that was done, this survey, but the survey that was done, that we found the records up in Concord when the DeRochers were involved in that.
That is the same survey.
That's the same as this survey, okay. So that's a place to start then. And then, maybe just to consolidate all of the research that's been done by various.
And to take it a little bit further, because we do have access to LCTV, maybe we could do a site walk with them and they could record it and you could walk around the building and show the significance and then start broadcasting that on the YouTube channel or LCTV, or if somebody looks it up and they look up a
Find
building,
some-
they'll find
yeah.
it, drag them in.
Okay,
Good idea.
that's valuable for discussion,
Yes.
for sure. Okay, I think those are all very good ideas, and I think we could start working on that. Are any other ideas is that agreeable with everybody here?
I'd just like to say that I think that this, being on this Heritage Commission gives us an opportunity to really open up the educational floodgates and let folks know about our history.
Yeah, I agree, and there are a lot of historic homes in town, and maybe some of the owners of the homes aren't even aware of the history that surrounds their own property, so
I
Right,
definitely
right.
agree with that.
might be very good for that too. Okay, any other additional comments on that number? Okay, does anybody have any new business to bring up?
Oh, not necessarily new business, but looking at this, I realized after we got past item 4 that we haven't approved last month's minutes.
Oh, and I never put it on here either.
That happens.
I was having quite a bit of trouble with, I have a new computer, I just have to confess, and I am so, it's mind-boggling to me, so.
Well, our real focus right now is, for this meeting, is responding to the, the metal detection
Yes,
policy, so
right.
it's understandable.
Right, but okay, so we're gonna skip back to where I should have had that in as, we'll call it number 2A, the minutes from, did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any comments, or are there any corrections or deletions or
They're done.
additions?
I move that we accept the minutes from last month.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
Steve was
I
out,
was not
okay.
here.
Okay, so the minutes from the June meeting are approved. Thank you. Thank you.
401.
Okay, 401. Okay, any new business? Okay, no business. Do I have a motion from anyone to adjourn then?
I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I didn't think we'd have
Oh, Mr.
anybody not wanting to adjourn.
Mr.
Okay,
Stickler
well-
over here.
You gotta